Famous ghost photos were always at the center of discussion about the paranormal, but some of them still stand out. They have their own fascinating and unique backstories, starting from the bone-chilling specter of the Newby Church, all the way to the creepy young boy in the Amityville horror house, and the terrifying lady of the Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. Some images have already been proven fake, but the others remain unexplained. Without any further ado, let's get into it. The first picture I'm talking about was taken on November 19, 1995, in Wem, a town of 5,000 in Shropshire, West England, after the roof of the Wem Town Hall burst into flames. The Victorian-style complex was opened in 1905 in the town center, and in 2023, it operates as a community arts regeneration hub where visitors can participate in various cultural events, including movie screenings, theater, music, and dance. During the 1995 incident, police prevented onlookers from going near the burning town hall. However, Tony O'Rahilly, a local sewage farm worker and amateur photographer, was standing across the road and took several photos of the conflagration with his 200mm lens while firefighters were still on the scene. Without these, we would probably only be talking about the disaster, but after the images were developed months later, the figure of an unknown young girl appeared among the debris as she was standing in a doorway, and as expected, the apparition quickly became the talk of the town. Locals believed the girl could have been the ghost of 14-year-old Jane Churm, who lived in the 17th century and was accused of arson in 1677 when the town hall was burned down. Historical records showed that she indeed caused the fire that ravaged Wem, but it was an accident after Jane dropped a candle. Nonetheless, the story of her haunting the region lived through the centuries, and tourism and culture took advantage of the opportunity. For example, there is a band called Ghost of Wem. Local teenagers made a film about the legend. Bakeries sold ghost-shaped cakes, and I found sources about road signs carrying the addendum Ghost Town. O'Rahilly always claimed he didn't manipulate the image. To prove this, he first sent it to the Association for the Scientific Study of Anomalous Phenomena, which forwarded the photo and the negative to Dr. Vernon Harrison, the former president of the Royal Photographic Society. Harrison concluded that the photo appeared to be genuine, but remained skeptical, saying it may just be a convenient trick of the light, with smoke, flame, and shadow creating an optical illusion at the moment the photographer took his picture. The negative is a straightforward piece of black and white work, and shows no sign of having been tampered with, he said. The photographer died in 2005, and over time, the Wem ghost photo was subjected to more and more examinations. But the most important development happened in 2010, when a 77-year-old local resident came up with a probable solution. The ghost is very similar to a little girl seen on a 1922 postcard, reprinted in the Shropshire Star's Pictures from the Past slot. Moreover, the skeptical Inquirer wrote that a later analysis by photographic officers of the National Media Museum concluded that the photograph was doctored. A negative made from the photograph, not the original negative, showed horizontal scan lines consistent with those of a television image across the image of the girl. The officers concluded that the girl's image was likely pasted into the photograph. Perhaps the world's most well-known ghost picture was taken in 1963 in the Church of Christ the Consoler in Skelton-on-Ure, North Yorkshire. The temple was founded in June 1870 in memory of one Frederick Viner, who was the brother-in-law of George Robinson, 1st Marquess of Ripon, and was kidnapped by Greek brigands in April, along with other British and Italian nobles near Athens, Greece. On April 11th, the bandits demanded ransom, and the families of the hostages managed to collect a large portion of the money, but Viner was killed with 2 others in a failed rescue attempt. The heartbroken mother of Viner decided to build 2 nearly identical churches in the early English style as a tribute to her murdered son's memory. With the remaining ransom money, the family hired the prominent architect William Burgess. The construction began in 1871 and was completed in 1876 in Newby on the mother's land. 2 years later, in 1878, the second was opened too on the grieving sister's land. Today it is the Church of St. Mary in Studley Royal Park. In 1963, Reverend Kenneth F. Lord took pictures of the Newby Church's interior, and after developing the photos, he noticed a creepy figure standing on the first step of the altar. The image caused a huge shock, and over the decades, it became one of the most intriguing ghost photos of all time. The Reverend claimed that he did not observe anything unusual in the church, and that the place had no history of paranormal phenomena. Some said the transparent apparition resembles a 16th century monk, wearing a black robe and a white shroud over its face, possibly to mask leprosy or another disfigurement. None of the eyes, hands, legs, or any part of the body is visible, and compared to the size of the altar, the hooded shadow could have been at least 9 feet tall. But since the feet are not visible, skeptics highlighted that the thing could stand on a chair, a box, or anything else. Experts examined the photograph, and despite having all the hallmarks, they concluded that there was no clear evidence of double exposure or other types of tampering. Meanwhile, critics drew attention to the fact that the prayer pillows in front of the altar are not placed symmetrically, as if they had been deliberately placed away to accommodate the figure, and that the monk's clothes seem to drape over the step it is standing on, so whatever was there had physical contact with the material. However, to this day, the captivating photo hasn't been proven to be fake, and many consider it the most genuine evidence of the existence of ghosts. I guess, one way or another, everyone has heard of Amityville and the horrible things that happened there. Over the years, series of books, films, and even games have been created based on the events. The events of November 13th, 1974, when 6 members of the DeFeo family, the father and the mother, 2 brothers and 2 sisters, were massacred in Amityville, Long Island. Around 6:30 p.m., the oldest son, 23-year-old Ronald DeFeo Jr., rushed to the local Henry's bar for help and shouted, "You got to help me. I think my mother and father are shot." He returned home to 112 Ocean Avenue with a group of people, who then found the murdered parents and alerted the police. After arriving on the scene, authorities discovered all of the victims lying face down in their beds. They were each shot dead with a Marlin 336C rifle around 3 a.m., and the investigation revealed that Louise DeFeo and her daughter Allison were awake at the time of their deaths. It was very suspicious from the beginning. Initial interviews at the police station had already exposed inconsistencies in Ronald DeFeo Jr.'s story, and the man confessed to the murders the next day. Later at his trial, he claimed that he murdered everyone because he heard them plotting something against him. The family killer was later found to be mentally ill, but aware of his actions at the time of the crime, as DeFeo told detectives, "Once I started, I just couldn't stop. It went so fast." He was found guilty on 6 counts of second-degree murder and was given 6 sentences of 25 years to life. He died on March 12, 2021, at age 69, at the Albany Medical Center. The cause of death has not been made public. Many thought the building had become haunted following the cruel murders, but the Lutz family still moved into the horror house in 1976, although they left their new home after 28 days because of the alleged paranormal activity. The same year, Gene Campbell, a photographer George Lutz had hired, allegedly went to the house and captured something truly scary. According to the story, Campbell had set up an automatic infrared camera on the 2nd floor for the night, and one of the photos showed what appeared to be a young boy with glowing eyes looking out of a dark room. For some reason, Campbell decided not to show it to the public, but 3 years later, in 1979, George Lutz revealed the Amityville Ghost Boy photo on the Merv Griffin Show. Some people believe the image shows the murdered 9-year-old John DeFeo, while others think it's just a random image of Paul Bartz, another paranormal investigator who was also present there the night the photo was taken. They argue that the Ghost Boy has a very adult proportion to his body and is possibly wearing glasses, and the accidental photo was later used as a publicity stunt. About 24 miles south of Chicago, Illinois, an abandoned cemetery has haunted Bremen Township for the past few decades. The blood-curdling Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, one of the oldest ones in Cook County. Enclosed by the Rubio Woods Forest Preserve, the area is known for the reported ghost sightings that date back to at least the 1950s. The first settlers in the region were of English, Irish, and Scottish descent. They had arrived from New York and New England in the 1830s, and a second wave of German immigrants followed them in the late 1840s. According to the Bachelor's Grove Cemetery and Settlement Research Center, most of the stands of timber in the area assumed the name of one of the early families that settled near them. Therefore, Bachelor's Grove could have been named after the Batchelder family, who lived in Rich Township around 1845, 11 miles south of the cemetery. However, one Stephen H. Rexford, who moved to the Grove in 1833 or 1834, claimed that the settlement was named for a group of 4 single men, including himself, who relocated there after purchasing some land. But whatever the truth is, Bachelor's Grove had already appeared on a map by James H. Reese in 1851. The cemetery was originally called Everton Cemetery or Everton Cemetery, and the very first funeral was held for Eliza Scott in November 1844, but I found sources about a construction accident in 1834 when German immigrant workers were killed while working on the Illinois and Michigan Canal and were laid to rest at the site as well. In 1838, a local newspaper, the Blue Island Sun-Standard, mentioned that William B. Nobles was buried in Bachelor's Grove too. Decades later, in the 1920s and 1930s, rumors circulated about Chicago mobsters using the area as a dumping ground for their victims and firearms. The last traditional burial took place for Laura M. McGee in 1965, but in 1989, a man named Robert E. Shields was cremated and buried on the family plot too. The cemetery became isolated, inactive, and abandoned after the closing of the Midlothian Turnpike in front of the haunted property. Following this, in the 1960s and 1970s, vandalism accelerated as the park-like place became popular among young people to hang out, drink, and party, which quite often ended up in further destruction and desecration. The graves were spray-painted and knocked down. Some of them were even opened up. Bones were scattered everywhere, and authorities found evidence of satanic rituals too. At the same time, reports of ghost sightings and other paranormal activities began to increase dramatically. Most people talked about blue and red lights and a ball of light hovering over the graves. Some saw a black dog at the entrance that disappeared when approached, a ghost farmer and his horse, a ghost house, and even phantom cars that appear and disappear. Others mentioned a woman in a white dress holding a baby in her arms. But the most famous apparition is the White Madonna of Bachelor's Grove, thanks to a photo that was taken on August 10, 1991, by paranormal investigator Jude Huff Fells. The creepy image shows a sorrowful middle-aged woman sitting on a stone block. Huff was experimenting at the place with others from the Ghost Research Society. They claimed they were alone in the cemetery and had looked for any kind of electromagnetic change while also taking photographs of specific places around the fenced area. The alleged ghost appeared in one of the photos only after the infrared film was developed. Some say it seems like the woman was wearing a burial shroud, and parts of her head and arms may be transparent. Jude handed over copies of negatives of the original photograph over the years, but I found no evidence of an actual scientific examination, and locals on online forums remained skeptical. On August 17, 1997, a picnic was organized by an assisted living facility for its residents and their families. The event was taking place on a sunny Sunday, and Denise Russell's 94-year-old grandmother was there as well. The old lady found it more and more difficult to take care of herself and began to deteriorate mentally, so the family decided to place her somewhere professionals could help her. The picnic was held a week after she moved in, and Denise's mother and sister joined her in the afternoon fun. The elderly woman was in an unusually good mood that day. Therefore, to capture the moment, the sister took several pictures of her. According to the story, nothing happened for 3.5 years. Then on December 25, 2000, the same year the grandmother passed away, the sister went through old photos and handed Denise one from the picnic, and asked her about the tall figure standing behind the woman. Upon closer inspection, they realized that the bald man was identical to their grandfather, Jim Russell, who died on August 14, 1984, almost exactly 13 years to the day the photo was taken. Experts have not yet examined it, but all this means is that it has not been proven to be fake so far. Nonetheless, the story has some huge problems. To begin with, we don't know where exactly the picture was taken. Not a single internet source mentions a city or even a country. It can only be guessed that it was taken in an Anglo-Saxon country. In addition, the names of the grandmother, mother, and sister are unknown, and no information can be found about Denise Russell either. And it isn't really believable that it took 3.5 years to notice an otherwise quite striking male figure who was identical to their grandfather. The image was allegedly submitted to About.com first, but the fact that the photo was published at the dawn of the internet boom weakens the story further. By the way, did you notice the Grim Reaper among the trees?